All right, so welcome everyone. We're diving deep today. We're looking at, a piece of Psalm 11.
Okay.
And this one's all about, well, it kind of feels like it's about finding that place of safety.
Right.
When the world seems, I don't know, kind of crazy.
Yeah. I mean, even though it was written, 3,000 years ago, give or take, right? Yeah. This whole idea of looking for security and stability when things are going haywire around you. It's definitely something we can all relate to, I think, even today. It's just a human thing, isn't it?
Yeah, for sure. And it's interesting because right off the bat, verse 1, the psalmist is like, yo, I'm heading straight to the Lord for shelter.
Yeah.
But it's not like a literal, I'm hiding in a bunker kind of thing.
No, it's more like finding refuge in your faith.
Right.
Right. Anchoring yourself to something bigger than yourself when everything else feels shaky. And, makes you think, today when people are stressed about work, relationships, or just, the crazy news cycle.
Oh, I know, right?
Where do they run to? Some folks, they kind of disappear into social media maybe, or just try to distract themselves with, I don't know, whatever, right? But this psalm, it's suggesting something different, something more, maybe a little more internal.
Yeah. It's like social media tries to trick you into thinking you've got it all figured out,
Yeah.
You can curate this perfect little world online, but it's not really dealing with the underlying, anxiety.
Yeah, exactly. And it's kind of funny because, the psalm goes on to talk about the righteous and the wicked, right?
Oh.
And in verses 1 and 2, there's this super vivid image of the wicked bending their bows and, aiming their arrows in the dark.
Ooh, yeah, that's a powerful one. But, what does that even mean for us now? We're not exactly dodging arrows, are we?
No, not literally, but it's think about all the ways people can kind of attack each other, even when you can't see them.
Yeah.
All the cyberbullying that goes on, or people spreading fake news, or just using words to manipulate and hurt others.
Ugh. Yeah, that's rough.
It's basically the same idea, right? It's all about these sneaky tactics aimed at causing damage. And it's kind of like a reminder that even though technology has, totally changed, the fact that people can be, just plain mean to each other, that hasn't gone away at all.
Nope, not at all. And it's interesting how later on, in verse 3, the psalm talks about foundations being destroyed. That really kind of echoes that feeling of, I don't know, things falling apart that we see so much today. All the uncertainty and division.
Mm-hmm.
But even with all that chaos, there's this powerful message that comes through. If you're trying to do the right thing, you're not alone in this.
Absolutely. And part of that is knowing that someone is watching, right? And that leads us to verse 4 and this really striking image of God up in heaven, just watching over everyone.
Yeah. And, that idea, it's been around forever. I mean, this whole concept of divine justice, that nothing is hidden from God and that our actions have consequences. It pops up in so many different belief systems too, not just this one.
Right. It's pretty universal. And it's really interesting, how that image of God being up high, watching over everything, connects back to that ancient practice of building temples on hilltops and stuff, physically placing their gods in an elevated position. It's almost like a visual reminder that someone is always observing.
Yeah, and it kind of sets the stage for this whole discussion of rewards and punishments, right?
Uh-huh.
Which, the psalm gets into pretty directly in verses 5 and 6. It's strong stuff.
It is. It's intense. It talks about how much God hates wickedness and the punishment waiting for those who do wrong. And the way it describes it is, pretty vivid.
Oh, for sure. It talks about burning coals and brimstone and scorching wind and
yeah.
Doesn't exactly sound like a picnic.
No, not at all. And, I know some people might read that and think, whoa, that sounds kind of vengeful, But how does that fit with that idea of a loving God that we see so often in religious texts? Right. Well, first off, it's important to remember that this is poetry, right?
Sure.
So it's using these strong images to emphasize, just how serious injustice is and, the consequences that come with it. And it's not so much about God getting even. It's more about maintaining that balance, that cosmic order that makes everything work.
Right. It's there are natural consequences to our choices.
Yeah.
Even if we don't always see them right away.
Exactly. And it makes you think, right, what forms of punishment or maybe just consequences do we see playing out for injustice today? Is it through the legal system? Or maybe social pressure? Right. Or something else entirely?
Yeah, it's almost like the psalm is challenging us to really think about how a justice actually works in the world around us.
It is.
And then verse 7, it kind of brings us back to that core message, right? The Lord is righteous. He loves justice. The upright will see his face.
Yeah, and it's like, even when things feel totally chaotic and it seems like bad stuff is winning, this psalm is offering us a bit of comfort, right? It's saying that ultimately divine justice prevails.
It does, yeah.
And it circles back to that idea of finding safety and security in something greater than yourself, in your faith. That when you trust in a higher power, you can tap into a strength that helps you overcome those immediate fears.
So we've taken a pretty deep look at this psalm today. We've talked about faith, justice, and, how to find a place of peace when things get rough. But as we wrap up here, I keep coming back to this one question. If this psalm were written, right now, what would the modern day weapons of the wicked look like? What are those tactics we should be on the lookout for? That's something I'm going to be thinking about, and I hope you do too. Thanks for joining us for this deep dive, and we'll see you next time.
Yeah, see you then. Bye.
Bye.